My name is Nick Borrelli. I am a first year MSW candidate at the University of Southern California School of Social Work, and I am attending school full time at the San Diego Academic Center here in lovely Rancho Bernardo.
Um, Tell me about if you have any personal experiences with military dependent children and students.
Okay. Well, I'm a military dependent. My dad is actually still in the Marine Corps. He's been in for 31 years. I also did 6 years in the Marine Corps and just got out in September as a captain. So I have a younger brother who's 19. So the two of us went along through the whole process of being dependents and moving around and dealing with deployments and dad being gone. And actually now, as part of my internship for my MSW program, I get to work 2 days a week at San Onofre Elementary School, which is located on Camp Pendleton. And all of the kids there, well, I think it's about 99% of them, are military dependents. So it's a really great experience, and I'm learning a lot about, now having gone through it myself, seeing what, from an outside perspective, what it's like.
Being a military brat and actually working with kids it's a base school.
Yes.
What differences, are there advantages or disadvantages, do you think there are between base schools and public schools?
Well, from my understanding, because I went to a base school or a few base schools when I was growing up, but this it's actually a public school located on the base. So I will say that the advantages to that are that they have the same kind of curriculum and the same standards of teaching that they have. They fall under the Fallbrook Union School District. But the staff there and everybody there has really recognized the importance of having the link between the service members and the students there, and they try to incorporate and maintain flexibility for them as much as possible with having them interact with the kids and the students there, and it's great. So.
How has an organization that you're affiliated with taken steps or addressed any needs for military dependents?
Well, the reason why I chose to be a part of the USC School of Social Work, specifically in the San Diego area, is it's the first research school in the nation that started a military social work program. So when I originally started getting my teaching credential, when I found out that I was moving on from the Marine Corps, and I found Isaac Ford, who's a recruiter for the program. I guess I should say he found me, and I looked through what it meant to be part of the USC School of Social Work, be part of the military program, and they've recognized that there is a huge need for social workers and for trained professionals to provide assistance to military personnel coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, or any of the deployments that they do. But in the year that this program's only been around for 2 years, and they've already recognized the huge need for military dependents and spouses to also receive that kind of support. So they just got a grant this year to put 31 of us in and around schools surrounding the Camp Pendleton base because of the large concentration of military dependents. And hopefully the idea is that we can provide support for those students, but also get some empirical data to see how the students and the children of military families are handling deployments, are coping with the attachment issues from having mom or dad away for months at a time, placed in harm's way, and then returning, and what that does to the children. So it's really an amazing program, and we have a lot of wonderful professors that help us out, but also enable us to come up with ideas and to be innovative and to to go out and be on the ground and see what these kids need for support. So it's great.
Yeah. What if there is a way to have some consistency in the schools?
Right.
Because the military child's life is so generally inconsistent as you're going around changes. What do you think would be, or what is a way that they could keep some kind of consistency in the schools?
Well, it's easy for me to talk about that from where the school I'm at now, because all of the kids are military. But I think you don't tend to want to single groups out and single kids out. But if those kids in other schools that are mixed in with other populations and children who aren't military, when they find each other and when they find groups that they have deployment groups out there that they're starting, they have Camp Cope and things that people have recognized that it's really hard for kids when mom's gone or when dad's gone. But if these kids can find each other and relate, and we could provide some support in helping do that, then that's huge. And a lot of the teachers too, the input is awesome. They help out with sending care packages, writing letters, and they'll use, the things, the tools that they have in the classrooms, and kind of put the focus of effort on, hey, we're going to send these out to the families and keeping them involved. And I think that's really important. It's focusing on the positive aspects of being away from home and of maintaining those family relationships, and not so much on the negative, the danger, and the other things that are associated with being on deployment.
What are some of the advantages or challenges that are encountered when dealing with military dependents?
For dependents, I work with kindergarten through 8th grade, so all of the normal day-to-day trials and tribulations that you would expect from any other typical American kindergartner through 8th grade, typical kid, but throw on top of that the fact that dad's gone for 3 weeks because he's training, and then he comes back for 2, but then he goes on ship for a month and then comes back, and then he's gone for 7, and this is the second time he's done that in the past year and a half. So, or mom has to leave. Having those kids at such a young age, where they're still developing, and they still have the attachment to their primary caregiver or their alternate caregiver, and then having that void and taken away from them, and having to explain guilt, or not having to explain danger and war to some of these kids at such a young age. It can be very traumatic for them, and it can be very difficult for them to take in, and so it's kind of hard to assess sometimes how they're handling that, and whether or not, when you talk to a 5-year-old compared to talking to a 13-year-old, how that 5-year-old is coping with the fact that dad is gone, and what is his or her level of understanding of the situation. So you see a lot of family issues with coming back from deployment, and dealing with the struggle or the conflict of the readjustment phase. And it doesn't matter what the parent does in the military. Obviously, some jobs are harder than others, and some are more dangerous than others. But even the simple fact of being gone for 7 months in an area known to be dangerous, and then having to come home and adjust to family life and day-to-day life, it creates a lot of stress on the family, and it creates a lot of stress on the child. And whether that child feels shame or guilt or responsible for some of that stress, or is resentful towards the parents. All of those things are things that we see, and we're trying to find ways to mitigate that, obviously, so that there can be a smoother transition, and that there's not so much friction.
Yeah. How do you think the public education has responded to military dependence?
Well, I think there's a lag. I think that I I think they'd like to help out, but this program is the first I've seen in the country, and this grant that we just got this year is the first that I've seen in the country, and I'm of course very closed-minded and very biased, but I think we might recognize a need for it, but to the magnitude of how important it is, I think is something that's yet to be seen as far as public education goes. And I think that's one of our main goals in doing this school's internship program, is that so we can actually have empirical data that says, okay, this is what's happening to military dependents as they grow up and have to deal with multiple deployments and the stresses of that. And I think so. I think it's headed in the right direction, but it needs a push, obviously. And so hopefully we can help provide that.
What do you hope to, and I guess also, like, what do you hope that everyone else will get out of this workshop this weekend?
This weekend's workshop.
Yeah.
Okay. This weekend's workshop is phenomenal. It's I hope a lot of the information that we're receiving is kind of a lot of it's repetitive for me, just because of the way I was raised. But I really like the delivery, and I like the fact that the people teaching the seminar aren't necessarily directly from the military. It's kind of a nice spin on it, because I know how I would present as former military, or how somebody in the active duty can present a brief to civilians, to people who aren't in the military. But this gives a nice spin on it, and it kind of humanizes it a little bit more and adds a motherly touch, but also it makes it a little bit more practical and easier to take in. And so with that, I think it's great for anybody who wants to know more about what a military dependent goes through growing up, and some of the stresses, and especially nowadays, because I was very fortunate growing up with the way I was raised in my military family experience. We missed some of the deployments as I was growing up, and my father's first deployment was when I was 5, but he deployed through the Mediterranean, and so it was a much different experience. I think keeping up on current events and keeping the public informed about what the military is doing is very important, so that teachers and educators can be aware and also use that into taking that into consideration for helping out their students. But and then knowing, like, yeah, if your dad's in the military, your mom's in the military, they're going to combat, and they're probably going a few times. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head saying that having civilians in this workshop too is kind of like, it's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just, former military or dependents.
Right, and I mean, we have a large concentration of veterans and military spouses in our program, but we also have a lot of people who haven't been in the military, or their parents were in the military, or grandparents, but they have this need and desire to help out, and they recognize that, and I think that's awesome. And really, I think what is as beneficial, if not more, is having the educators here as well, where a lot of teachers and a lot of educators that I've met through the Marine Corps, in and outside of the Marine Corps, are unfamiliar with how the military works, or the strains and stresses of being a child and deploying. So I think this gives people without a military background a very good insight as to what the military child's life is like. So that's worth it in and of itself.